At 04:58 a.m., Moscow time, a single drone fell through a slit of sky toward a ventilation shaft 100 feet above a concrete bunker. 10 feet to the right, and the mission failed. 5 feet to the left, and a gas main would have turned a neighborhood into a smoking ruin. The difference between strategic genius and political catastrophe was measured in inches and 4 seconds. This is the story of a deception so elegant it looked like a miracle, and so dangerous it almost became an international incident. In the early hours of October 27, 2025, what Russian radar read as 200 inbound drones was, in truth, a carefully choreographed illusion. 50 real Leutai attack drones backed by an army of Phantom Echoes. The Phantoms weren't made of metal, they were made of code. A piece of AI called Ghost Echo tricked $1 billion air defense network into fighting shadows. Over the next 10 minutes, urban canyons, airborne gods, and human nerves would collide in a ballet of heat signatures, decoys, and last-second choices. The prize wasn't a factory or an ammo dump, it was a buried command bunker, a nerve center holding a dozen senior officers and the regional logistics server that fed a frontline war machine. Take that out, and you don't just damage equipment. You silence orders, freeze convoys, and turn trained artillery into blind metal. Subscribe and stay here, because this is where global events stop being headlines and start becoming clarity. The next wave is already forming. Don't watch it hit you from behind. Stay ahead of it. Hit subscribe now. The operation started far from Moscow, on a quiet strip of asphalt near Sunumi. What looked like ordinary commercial trucks unfolded like flowers, and from their beds crawled mobile launchers. One Leutai drone screeched into the night, then another. 20 seconds later, another. Across 3 remote sites, 50 drones rose, small and hungry. But the real magic was invisible. For every physical drone that climbed, the Ghost Echo system generated 3 identical Phantom radar blips. To an S-400 battery watching from the edge of the city, the sky suddenly filled with 200 threats. The Russian defenders were forced to spread their Pancer S1 launchers thin. Each battery had just a dozen missiles and a difficult choice: conserve, concentrate, or gamble. The Leutai drones dove low, 200 feet above the pine line, hugging the earth where Doppler filters and anti-clutter features made them appear like trucks on the ground. Modern long-range systems are brilliantly precise against missiles and jets. They are habitually blind to what looks like ground clutter. The drones exploited that human-designed blind spot. Then came the Pathfinders, 5 Leutai birds that peeled away from the swarm and slid into the concrete canyons of Moscow, using skyscrapers as armor. Equipped with LiDAR pods that painted the target with thousands of laser dots per second, and an electronic ear, a hacked key to the enemy's radio codes, they mapped, confirmed, and recorded the bunker's vulnerabilities. They found the bullseye, a ventilation shaft the size of a manhole, and a pathway into the heart of the command server. But any close approach invited peril. Around 0410, a distracted S-400 operator near Kuga locked onto a Phantom. The response was brutal and expensive. $100,000 interceptors fired at $500 decoys. Explosions bloomed over Tula and Bryansk, converting radar ghosts into falling metal. Moscow's air defense learned in real time that someone was manipulating the picture. Enter the A-50, an AWACS prowling the skies like an almighty eye. Its look-down sensors and thermal arrays could sweep 200 miles and see through the Doppler trickery. Suddenly, the low-altitude ruse looked doomed. The game changed at 04:35 when Ukraine triggered the next phase, Phantom Shift. For 45 heartbeats, Ghost Echo adjusted the Phantom signal's frequency, the equivalent of sliding a radio station off the dial. Ground radars went deaf. For that long, the Leutai performed a lateral ballet, turning perpendicular to the last known radar headings to shrink their cross-section and slip between beams. But the A-50's thermal logic could not be tricked forever. Urban heat rises from facades and exhaust, and the drones deliberately plunged into the warmth of Moscow's concrete canyons to mask their signatures. Computers filtered the noise. Then, through a gap between 2 glass towers, the A-50 spotted a flicker that should not have been there. Target locks appeared on 5 real drones. At 0440, Panzer batteries launched Mach 5 interceptors. What followed was a blur of speed and improvisation. The Leutai drones did something no person could. snap turns and barrel rolls with millisecond timing. Each released a thermal lure, a small microwave oven of heat designed to scream louder than the drone itself to a heat-seeking missile. Missiles peeled off for the hotter target and detonated on decoys, sparing the drones but not their equipment. One Leutai lost its camera to shrapnel and its operator's sight to static. Electronic warfare then became the main event. The Russians poured jamming signals into the sky. Video feeds from 2 drones collapsed into snow. Operators were now effectively flying blind, sleepless in the cockpit of remote eyes. And that, astonishingly, was part of the plan. For the final seconds, the leading drones switched to terminal autonomous mode. An onboard high-resolution image of the ventilation shaft became their lock. The drone's camera matched memory to reality and flew purely on machine vision. But ingenuity never guarantees invulnerability. From a rooftop, a Spetsnaz operator, eyes on the sky and nerves steeled, fired a shoulder-launched Egla-S. One drone became a fireball. The electronic veil shivered. Only 4 remained. They dove. At 04:58, those 4 launched 165-pound penetrators, fins folding into guided gliders that matched GPS coordinates with surgical precision. They punched through 10 feet of reinforced concrete and buried themselves near the main command server. A delayed fuse, 0.8 seconds, turned the blast into a pressure bomb. The goal was not to collapse a building, but to cook its guts, close the oven, trap the heat, and let the shockwave ricochet until electronics were liquefied. The server racks did not burn. They died as circuits died, melted traces, desoldered connectors, and corrupted flash. Lights flickered, then went out. In minutes, the network, the brain feeding thousands of guns and trucks, went dark. 12 high-ranking officers, including 2 Spetsnaz generals, were later confirmed dead. Logistics data, 70% of the region's files, vanished into rubble. Spetsnaz sealed the perimeter, and the mayor's early denials could not hide the crater confirmed later by satellite imagery. The aftermath was not only physical. Orders stopped. Artillery fell silent. Convoys stalled, waiting for instructions that would never come. In the 48 hours that followed, Ukrainian forces advanced nearly 10 miles across critical sectors. The psychological damage rippled through the high command. A fortress could be found out. A billion-dollar S-400 umbrella was rendered impotent by a few dozen drones, some code, and a daring plan. And geopolitics turned. The strike arrived as a new U.S. administration was applying pressure on NATO. A fresh $2.3 billion in drone aid followed. The battlefield victory had shaped policy as much as it had scrambled circuitry. Modern war is increasingly the art of applied cleverness. Hardware still matters. Range, speed, armor. But the decisive edge often lives in software, in timing, and in the willingness to exploit the enemy's assumptions. A radar is only as honest as the frequencies you trust it to report. A fortress is only as secure as the data that keeps it fed. So where next? If you were the commander setting a phantom trap, would you choose St. Petersburg's long lines, the maze of a naval base, or somewhere entirely unexpected? Leave your plans below, and remember, tactics without ethics cost people their lives. This was a single tactical stroke with strategic consequences, a reminder that in the digital age, the scarcest resource is surprise. Is this conversation helpful so far?